Good morning. I think it's still morning. Although I'm not sure about all of you, I wake up early enough with my children that by the time I make it to 10 a.m., it might as well be 6 p.m. Because I'm already pretty exhausted from just getting into the space that I am right now. So I am thrilled to be amongst adults and who are thinking about the Carroll Upper School. I appreciate you joining today and learning more about, frankly, a school that you already know so much about. So much of today feels this delicate balance of sharing about how the Carroll School is different at the upper school level, while also making sure you understand that at the end of the day, we are one school on 3 campuses. And so much of what we're doing here is what you have already known for however long you've been here, and my guests have loved. My understanding is that you wouldn't be considering sticking around longer if it wasn't a place that you were feeling some level of maybe I call it transition sadness about having to leave Carroll. And the beauty of this conversation is that you don't actually have to. There is another year available for your children if they are 8th graders. So I am Kate Collins, and I am the division head of the upper school. So for those of you that are you're with Allison West, I am the Allison West of the upper school. And frankly, I will spend probably the rest of my career trying to be as great as Allison West. And it is such a great model to have. And I am so grateful for that. So we all have that in common, is that we have the benefits of being around that wonderful human. So this morning I am going to walk you through really the ways in which we are what we're offering to 9th grade students, really, and have a conversation with you. I appreciate that you're here, even if it's your name. There's something about just seeing names in a little box rather than a webinar format where I'm not sure who I have in front of me. So if you want your camera on, that's wonderful. If not, I also understand. So we will have time for questions. But before we get to that, I really wanted to start off with the conversation around ultimately the who, what, why, and how of the upper school. We use question words a lot in unpacking things with students, and it feels, the questions that you're having right now about how your child will spend their academic future is probably rooted in a lot of those who, what, why, and how. So that's kind of where we're going to go. I put together this little Venn diagram. We also love making things visual at Carroll School. Ultimately, this is the what and the who. You know the upper school adults, even though you don't know the upper school actual adults. We are Carroll educators. We are trained in the way that all of the teachers that you have been around for years have been trained, and are ultimately different, unique versions of the people that you already know. And there's something about that, at least for me, when I go onto the other campuses, I immediately feel a sense of belonging, even though I don't spend as much time on the other campuses as I do here. And it's because I'm around like-minded people and educators and families and students. And there's something about that sense of belonging that you feel when you move across the 3 campuses. And I believe that our students feel that as well. The other piece of what is happening, particularly in the 9th grade, is that we really are looking to increase in a high school, because it is high school, the behavioral and academic expectations. I really try to stay away from the word academic rigor. I think I actually kind of hate that word. And at the same time, it is what all of you are knowing is out there for your kids after they leave Carroll School. So to not have them prepared for that, and not that, and of course they are being prepared for that, but to try on what that looks like when we kind of scale up the expectations around homework, behavior, et cetera, while trying to continuing to increase their independence. A few years ago, I had a parent say, my child has learned how to swim at Carroll School. they were drowning where they were before. Carroll taught them how to swim. And now I am terrified about what's going to happen as if there's a wave, a tidal wave coming their way, and I don't know if they're going to be able to swim through it. And I think that that is in some ways what all of us feel for our children when they're transitioning in any way. And what I like to think is that the upper school was offering that kind of high school tidal wave or with the surrounding of the Carroll School adults and program. So our goal, if this was ultimately a quadrant here, is to move your child, and that's that star up on that right side, is to move your child as increasing those expectations and as independently as possible. So the why is really rooted in that we are getting the transition to high school. So this is still a transition. This is absolutely a middle school to high school experience and shift from the moment they arrive, while they see the same logo on the door and colors on their sport jerseys. It is a high school transition. And we are talking about that, increasing homework demands, independent expectations, advocacy demands, et cetera, and seeing kids rise to that occasion, all while also thinking about where they go next and where they go from here. So ultimately, in the same way, moving as fast as we can, but as slow as we have to. What the upper school, when we think about our academic program, students, and you'll see it on what a sample schedule looks like, students are still engaging in math, science, English, and history, and a focus area, as well as co-curricular and more free time. So our students do have more minutes in their day for study hall experiences, a longer lunch, more breaks, more time to make a decision on what they should be doing. So much of middle school, and this is really every middle school, is so structured. You go from having every minute of your day scheduled to having free periods. Being able to make a choice of what to do with that time is a really important skill to develop. And we are thinking about that and how we're structuring that and helping our students develop those skills. And so ultimately, across all of our curricular areas, including that free time and being evenings, et cetera, thinking about EF skills, building academic independence, writing across the curriculum. So really working on more sophisticated writing, literary analysis, lab reports, research, et cetera, and overall language skills. Thinking about math, we are looking at geometry. For many students, it's geometry. For some, we are in Algebra 1 in 9th grade, but we do offer Algebra 1 and geometry, as well as thinking about the stepping stones of the social transition to high school. So frankly, 9th graders, I say, are just 3 months older than 8th graders. And the only thing that's between an 8th grader and a 9th grader is June, July, and August, and not a whole lot happened in June, July, and August. In every school I've ever worked at, I feel like we have high school students in March, because the amount of transition that is happening throughout the fall and the early winter months is pretty significant for the middle school mind to adjust and transition. And doing that here at Carroll, whether it's conversations around identity or academic in nature, or both, which is what we're also striving to do, students having the space to try on what it means to make a mistake and how to respond in a small and nurturing environment is really important. And I think at this time and the days that we are currently living, more than ever, students having the space to learn and develop those skills is really important. As far as our day, it looks, and I apologize for how visually overwhelming this is, but for those of you that feel our students have to look at this every day, and it sometimes it's remarkable to me that they end up where they're supposed to be at all, ever. So this is what the 9th grade program would look like. The English class is an English literature course. There is lots of, mostly working on reading and annotating, reading comprehension, and writing. So writing in a literary, working towards critical analysis essays, so that they are at the place of writing a thesis, not just responding to text explicit questions in full sentences, which is primarily what many middle schools, really everywhere, focuses on through middle school. So also they are taking a ninth grade physics class, a world history course, algebra or geometry, and a focus area. So focus area, similar to in the middle school, is what your child needs. So that ranges from, as you probably already know, Orton Gillingham, right through high level reading comp, writing. There's a focus area of 5 that are working on essay writing at an independent level, and really to that idea of how quickly can they produce ultimately their writing, because that, for many schools that we're looking, when our students leave, it's about that production, and not just independently, because independence also means asking for help, right? So how are you getting your work done early enough to actually ask for help? If you finish the night before it's due, there's not a lot of time to advocate for yourself, for support. So those skills. We also are thinking the executive functioning skills are frankly being developed all the way through their probably 25 actually. So we're just starting the process in a different way, in a more independent way. Students are maintaining their schedules and thinking about time from both what do they have to do, how long is it going to take, when is it due, and when are they going to do it. So every day we have a 10-minute NCLU at the end of our day. It's a little bit shorter than in the other divisions. And at this time, students are making sure that they are dedicating time to think about what do I have to do and when am I going to do it. And frankly, that is a skill that many adults are still working on. If you are not aware of what you have to do, the likelihood that you're going to do it is low. It's also true that if you don't dedicate and think about the other things in your life and dedicate time to do it, it's going to feel stressful. So we are, this is incredibly, as simple as this looks, it's an incredibly effective calendar schedule that we're using with students for them to be independent and feel independent. And it's now a document that I have sent out as a PDF form to many, many schools that our kids arrive at. It's by this time of the year, and this year it's already happened 3 times. I have a learning specialist from some school reaching out to get the planner, to get a copy of the upper school planner, because of that metacognitive. So the other piece here is that I often say, and the students I think are a little bit annoyed by it, but I say school is not a spectator sport. I think for so many students, and even at Carroll, where we're doing engaging students more in their understanding of who they are, school has been something that they've been watching their parents and their teachers navigate for them. So whether it was in their previous school through an IEP process, or they're just hearing like, oh, you're going to do this times 30 minutes 3 times a day, and they just know to go, but they're not part of that process. Even when it comes to conferences, it is often conversations between the parent and the teachers, and the students not involved. While that's still happening, in the sense that that's where sometimes the real talk is happening with the parents and the teachers, we are engaging students in a process we call up forms. These come out every few weeks. This is what it looks like. It is ultimately a grade and the current amount of missing assignments in a class, as well as a short comment from each teacher. The difference in this and why this isn't still a spectator sport is that the students see this before the parents do. So this is completed by the teachers on a Wednesday of a certain week. And then on that Friday, every student has a conference, a one-on-one conference with their advisor, where they go through all of the details of their up form. And then the students are going to write a comment for themselves. So if they're struggling, so like this student, for instance, a C+ in English might be a struggle for them, that's a class that's struggling. they're not going to wait to hear their parent say, oh, I saw that you have a missing assignment in science, right? They're going to know that already. So by the time the parent receives the form, there is a comment from each teacher, from the advisor, and from the student. And that often, when you, that the engagement that families see from their child of having that preview of what it's going to say and being involved is really a game changer, and frankly what we are looking to see from high school students as they progress through the years of high school. And it's a really important skill that frankly is not developed in many places. So additionally, this idea of being, this is not a spectator sport. We're also, given our size and the resources of adults that we have, very interested in students becoming the drivers of the things that motivate them from a social, emotional, or student experience way. So clubs are formed each year by who we have. We have had and still do have a very active gun control club, social justice and activism club. We're doing volunteer work, pottery, things that are just of interest. You see a picture here of our cooking competition called Top Chef Wayland. So trying to create fun and inclusive activities that students are also the driver of, letting them try on being the leaders. Now in ninth grade in most schools, when there is 10th, 11th, and 12th graders there, the ninth graders do not feel that. They are not having the opportunity to be in charge of something or try on leadership because they're waiting until senior year. We're not doing that here because they are the leaders of this building, and they are having the opportunity to have some agency in how they spend their time, what they do with their time, and also how they can lead the school. And what I can see and what I can tell you is that so many schools are missing out on ninth grade leaders because they are motivated for, frankly, all of the right reasons of just being engaged and connecting in a way that when I was around older students, it felt a little bit different. So that is the kind of quick overview, and I wanted to make sure I leave time for questions. The big thing here, and this picture is a podium, and it's empty. And the reason why it's empty is that, well, in this moment, no one was there yet. But it is the podium that is at our graduation. And every one of our ninth graders delivers a speech at our graduation. And maybe don't tell your kids that right now, because they might not want to come here. But for you to know that what I can say is that every single child delivers an incredible speech about their journey and about to summarize and share a piece of their story with the community. And it is the most moving day that I have experienced professionally in my 21 years in schools. And it is, I am going to have my 4th experience this year. And I spend the entire year thinking about how that day is going to feel for each of these kids and how we're helping create that story that they are so a part of. And the reflection and how independently they write and deliver the speech is the ultimate capstone project for our students. So if your child is here with us in the upper school, that podium is waiting for them. And for that to happen, there are some steps here of ultimately talking with your secondary school advisor, setting up a time to speak with me. And then we kind of take it from there in the sense that we schedule a visit for either just your student during the school day, or if it is a better fit for the family to come together. And then we confirm your decision by reaching out to your secondary school advisor. It is open enrolling. So for those of you that know that the upper school is for them, that there's no reason to wait on that, we can do that quickly. So I'm going to stop sharing and open for questions. And I'm sure there's a lot, if I can find the button, or maybe not. Okay.
I have a question. It's Victoria McGowan. I'm Samantha's mom. Just curious, you might have said this already, but how many students are typically in the ninth grade at the upper school?
Yep. So we have 31 ninth graders this year for a total of, and 56 students in the building, 25 eighth and 31 ninth graders. That's a great question, and I didn't say it, so my apologies on that. And that group of 31 is made up of students who were here in Wayland for 8th grade, and about 10 students who are new to the upper school for 9th.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, another thing that I didn't say that I remember or I have shared maybe more on a one-on-one basis is that the why students are coming to the upper school, I think from a historical perspective has really started to diversify, you know, in the sense that there have been there's so many why. So we have 10 students that came over from the Lincoln campus, and I would say we have 10 reasons why. It is not all of them needed more Orton Gillingham. Frankly, most of them are not, you know, not all of them are still in OG. For some of them, that is the why, that their next school won't offer that. And, you know, ultimately what it comes to is that what underlies most of the why is when they're thinking about where they're going to be next, that extra year is going to help them have more clarity on either is it that their list is slightly different, or is it that you know, maybe we've had students who like really want to be a boarder but aren't really ready yet to be away, and or maybe they could be a boarder, and one more year at home to really solidify that decision is going to be helpful. So there's lots of reasons why, and frankly all of them I think are great reasons, and I think Charlene and Cece and Francie have seen that as well.
Kate, this is Lev, Sophie's dad. I joined a few minutes late. I apologize. So maybe you covered this. Can you talk a little bit about from an outplacement perspective, in terms of where the 9th graders go? And I guess I'm particularly interested, how many of them repeat 9th grade elsewhere, so they're joining, essentially a new class and continuing through wherever they end up for high school for kind of a full 4-year period, versus how many joined in 10th grade, and how that sort of distribution also looks like by boarding or more immersive programs versus less immersive programs.
Francie, sorry, that's totally putting Francie on the spot. I can give the answer in maybe broad strokes. I'm not sure if you or Charlene or Cece have
I guess it depends. For last year's numbers, I know that I think we had 17 students go off to boarding world. Trying to remember how many. I think a couple of them reclass. I think it depends on what you're looking for. So they might reclass because they're looking for athletics and a strong athletics, and they want that 4-year sort of opportunity in that vein. So last year's numbers were 17 went to boarding, 7 went to private day, I believe, and 2 went back into the public school system. This year, I'm looking probably for the applying for 9th grade, possibly reclassing. I would say 4 or 5, and again, all for reasons. For each family, it's sort of different. I think our numbers this year may be lower on how many will end up at boarding, but we're still obviously in the process, so we don't know. But it may not be as high as last year's group.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the range is very different. I mean,
just add on to Francie. Okay. Oh, go ahead, Francie. Sorry about that. I just wanted to add on and concur that what Francie said is emphasize that each year it's an individual class. And so the individual decisions really, that's the beauty of the upper school. It's really about what is your child looking for? What are your family's needs? And Francie and Kate just do a wonderful job honing in on that. So when we look at the numbers as a whole, it really is dependent on the class. So next year could look very different in terms of what are you looking for, and what did you come in thinking, and what did you decide in the end after you had your opportunities for schools that you were looking at.
Any other
Hey, can I ask a question that I recall being asked in the past about just coming from a smaller school, both when you're at Carroll Middle School and or Carroll Upper, and does that impact in any way in terms of where they head off to high school?
As far as what, do they kind of seek out the smaller? Or is that what you're saying? Sorry.
I think that some families are wondering, oh, it's a small school, and are they okay when they branch out into the larger world?
Right. So yes, I mean, in my, this age group, and I've seen this, and Charlie and I think you have too, so many of our students branch out here. And what is phenomenal, I think what is really interesting is this concept, and I think adults have this concept, that in order to prepare yourself for the big pond, right, you have to just get into the big pond. Where the skill development that happens when you're in a smaller pond, right, the big fish, small pond, the development, the confidence building in the leadership skill development, finding your voice, finding out who you are and who you want to be. You don't need a big pond to do that. Frankly, I think developing those skills in the smaller pond prepares you even more so. We have seen students who are active and engaged, maybe in a quieter way in the middle school, who come over here, and Charlene will visit and say, oh, is that so? Like, she is almost in shock at the social skills that are coming out for these students, the leadership that they're taking on, how they're speaking up. Over the last few years, there's been even just boys that Charlene will come over and see, and that now they have like they're playing basketball with kids. She didn't even know they played basketball. They're hanging out with kids that they were in school with for years that they had never really connected with, and having this social development that really does prepare them. And then they actually are leaving for schools that were never even on the list before, that were actually bigger because they had developed that confidence and growth. So, going back to the big fish, small pond, I really don't think you need a big pond to learn how to function in one. I think you're much better off developing those skills in a small pond. And we're not that small. The students here actually, just this year, and we're 56 total. We have you would think that they were in a school with 700s, the way some of them are like talking about the place. So and I think partly because of the way, the freedom that they have within the building and in their free time, that they feel less, given the high school structures of how we are obviously still supervising, but how we're monitoring students in a way that feels they have more autonomy. And that, I think, being our size really helps in developing those self-regulation and management skills, but with that freedom.
I'm going to add one more thing.
Okay. Yeah, please do.
I'm thinking back to two students in particular who, as we're talking about, it could be a launching pad to maybe a school they weren't considering. I can think of two students off the top of my head who had specific schools in mind that were in their wheelhouse, and it was more the preparedness that they felt following their year at Carroll Upper School that just set them up for the success in terms of taking on the word that you don't like, the rigor of high school, and or whether that's a comprehensive support school and or a moderate or a minimal support school. So really just thinking it can be, this is kind of going back to, it's for a variety of reasons that a student will embark on a high school year at Carroll Upper School, and that it could be that the same school is on your mind in 8th grade that's still on your mind in 9th grade. But you're feeling more confident and reassured on who you are as a learner and what you're planning to access from that school and how you're going to go about that. I can just think of two huge success stories where they knew what they wanted in 8th and they still knew what they wanted in 9th, and it just worked out really beautifully for them having that extra year.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Feel free to chat me directly if you have one that you. So, Charlene, is there any other question that you might know people have? And if not, maybe we can just remind people of the now what. And
Yeah, I don't have anything off the top of, certainly CC or Francie jump in. The other pieces, if you think of, just like we tell our students when they go for their visits, if you think of something that you meant to, ask and it comes up, please reach out to any of us via email or a phone call. And if we don't have the answer, we'll definitely probe Kate for that or get you in touch for certain. And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head what other
I have
I think
almost
processes wise, I appreciate that Kate shared that, please reach out to CC and I on the middle school campus if you'd like to set up that communication with Kate, and we will do an email kind of introduction and share a link to a calendar where Kate will offer times to connect and then take it from there. And I think that exploration piece is really great and terrific. And I think that although this was spectacular and wonderful to really understand Carroll Upper School, those one-on-one conversations about who your child is with Kate are really helpful. And Stacy, did you have anything to ask?
I'm gonna hand it to Kate. She's read my brain. She knows
I'm on it. So as I'm thinking about, yes, so we wish that we could have, I think there's maybe 70 something 8th graders. Many, we could never have all come to 9th grade. We just don't, right now we are at a capacity in our building. We are 56 students. This is the largest the upper school has ever been. It feels wonderful. 31 will graduate. So we have, obviously space that will become available. However, the idea, the sooner a family knows or is aware of their intentions to join us, the better. When we say rolling, we really can get to a max where we actually cannot put another person in our building. So while we do understand there's for many families, this is a school on a list, and there's a March 10th decision time. For those of you that that's maybe not the case, there is a sooner the better feeling, at least from the enrollment perspective. I think there's also that for students. I've seen that when a student is very much interested or a family is heavily considering the upper school, when that decision has been just made at an earlier time, the weight that is lifted for that child to go through the 8th grade experience without the stress and pressure of the application process, and not going through that twice in the 8th and 9th grade year is really helpful. So what I would encourage is that if it is something that is very much on your mind, that you consider the strain of the application process, that it is not easy. I would also say, and this does tie in, the other thing that has been remarkable to me in between 8th and 9th graders is that the 8th grade, I have 9th graders who will have a parent who will call me and say, their essays are done. Like they'll just get started. I had a boy the other day, like, I forgot my essays this weekend. I'm like, what essays? He's like, my application essays. And he's just getting started on his own. He already has the questions. We're giving him ideas and guiding him, et cetera. But there is I can say with certainty, having known him in 8th grade, there is no chance, beyond no doubt, that he would have been that self-starting 8th grader. So from some ways, there's like a litmus test of how independent does your child feel right now in the kind of essay piece of getting ready to write for these schools. Not that, and of course, not every student needs support through that process, but there is a piece of the stress and angst that might be causing them that may look different in 9th grade.
The other thing I can add, Kate, too, that this just occurred to me while you were talking about capacity limits is that for families who require financial assistance, and whether you were on financial aid previously at Carroll or you would be new, as you may remember from your admission journey or not, we run out of aid at times before we run out of space. Actually, Francie and I were having a conversation this morning about how Carroll Financial Assistance tends to be more generous than many other of the secondary schools. So if that's a factor and you want to have a conversation with Dave Barkin about that, or any of us in the financial assistance office, kind of happy to offer ourselves up there. Thank you.
Okay. So if anyone wants to stick around for smaller group questions, I'll stay on, but it was great seeing even your names. It was really, I appreciate even the little black box with your names. So thank you. And I will hopefully hear from, as many of you that are still interested in talking and exploring the upper school.
Thanks very much, Kate. We
Thank you very
really
much.
appreciate your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Very informative. Thanks so much.